As quilters, we love finishing a quilt, especially if it's covered in diamonds and maybe has even a little Christmas tree. Yes, more Christmas trees. But what about that quilt you haven't finished? All it needs is a backing. What if I told you I have a perfect solution for a quilt back? And maybe even something a little extra you might like. I'm Lea Louise from Inspired Quilting by Lea Louise, and you are going to love this idea for a quilt back. It's a beautiful design you'll use over and over, and you'll even want to use it as a quilt top. It's pretty terrific. So what do you need to make a quilt back? Grab your fabrics and let me show you. What better way to label your quilted items than with a personalized quilt label? And since we still have some of this fabric left over that we made a couple videos ago, I'm going to show you how to make some labels with little mini Christmas trees. So I have some label templates you can download. This is for a basic layout. You make your tree and you put it on here. This is if you're going to sew directly onto your label. You can stack strips. You can do a wonky stack. Here is a folded strip stack. And then, of course, we need to have a rag quilt stack. So all this is available in the download. Plus, there are printed layouts for doing words on there, printing a message. So these will print just the tree, so you have a placement of where to put your tree. Alternatively, you can use this and you can just draw it in or place it in yourself. This one will print the words with a tree, but remember you need to cover that tree with your applique or whatever you're using, or just print the words. And that's what I did here. So I printed these on a single page of the printable fabric. It's really important that you use the 100% cotton printable fabric because the transfers are not going to hold up. They're like a laminate that goes on and it will wash out over time. This you use a permanent ink with your printer, and so once that ink is in there, it's not going anywhere. And then you just do your applique or embroidery or just write a message. But it's very easy to do. You can see this just needs to be finished off. I'll sew that end. I took two pieces and with right sides together, sewed around and flipped it over, pressed it, and I have a great label. These are a lot of fun. So I'll put the download information below so you can check it out. And now I'm going to get the quilt finished, get the rest of the quilting done, and from there we will be able to put our binding, and then I can sew my label on and it's finished. I can't wait. Does this look familiar? This is the Christmas quarter log cabin that I made last year, and I'll link the video so you can see how it's made. We did it on point, so we've got the quarter log cabin, we've got our logs going around and the accent strips. I just think it looks wonderful. And then having that green, almost like a lattice border around each one, really divides the blocks up so it doesn't get too busy between all of them being side by side. But you can see how the rows were put together diagonally to be on point. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like sewn together. And here it is once it's all pieced and sewn together. I really like the look of the on point quilt when we have the half blocks on the side. I just think it gives it such a great look. And I really like that these, look more like diamonds. And I'm really happy with how this quilt turned out. So we're going to get to the backing, and that's next. So let me show you what we need to do for that. I'm really excited to share my quilt backing idea with you. I did the quilt last year and it's sort of been sitting, and I'm determined to get it finished, and this is a great way to do it. Backing can sometimes be challenging. We're never sure what to do. I want to make it interesting, so I'm using a lot of scraps and stash and a couple pieces I needed to buy, but overall I'm going to have a fantastic quilt back, and I really want to show you how to do this. I think you'll appreciate it and find ways that you can do it yourself. Now this is for my quarter log cabin, and it's basically green and red, so I'm going with that on the back, but most of these fabrics are not in the quilt. These are other fabrics that I have acquired. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting strips together. Let me show you. I have some pieces here, and it's all sort of folded up nice and neat. Here we go. So I'm putting lengths of strips together. So it's not unlike a brick pattern. And it's going to be random. They're not going to line up. They'll basically be sort of off center. The seam on this side will come somewhere in the center, and they're not all exact. That's the other thing that makes this super simple, is there's nothing that has to match up anywhere. It all just goes together, and we create a great top. And then, because at the end we sometimes find we need a little bit extra quilt backing, I'm using some narrow strips to add where I need some width. And it also kind of breaks up the pattern here, and I'll show you that in just a minute when I'm putting this together. But to save you some time, my recommendation is don't pre-cut these. I cut these at 2.5 inches, and I wish I had waited, because a couple more inches across the quilt would have been helpful. Instead, I'm making an extra row, and that's okay, but it kind of makes things off a little, and I like things, to line up well. But that's okay. I'm going to make this work. Now, what I want to show you is how I came about piecing this. Cutting this backing is super simple, and I've already started putting the back together. These are pieces that I have, and they're already cut into strips. So what I want to show you is I cut 12-inch strips from the width of fabric. Now, if you cut two 12-inch, that's at 24. A third one will put you at 36, and then you have a 6-inch piece left over. So again, I'm going to save you a little time here. Open your width of fabric, cut out two 12s, and then whatever's left is what's going to be your extra piece. And I'm going to show you why that's important as well. So you take your fabric, and I bought some half-yard lengths of the extra pieces. You can see I went discount, and that works for me. There were coupons. I always take advantage of a coupon. But what I did is I just, folded my fabric, I laid it across, and I'm cutting. Actually, in this case, I see that, okay, this isn't a good example because this isn't on the selvage, but that's okay. We're going to pretend this was on the selvage. I obviously did something else with this because I cut it the opposite direction. So pretending this is on the selvage, we would have our selvages over here. We cut our strips. And I use 6-inch wide bands to make my bricks out of. So I cut a 6-inch strip, and then I came in and just cut. So my strip is cut, and then I cross cut to 12 inches. So now I have two 12-inch strips. And then whatever's left is the extra piece. And the reason this is important is it's longer than 12 inches. So when I'm at the end of the row, in order to offset my bricks, I need a little extra fabric, like about that 6 inches, because if I put a 1/2 inch or a half size block alternating every other row, then that's going to offset my seams, no matching seams. But why cut off that little piece if I can just leave a longer section of this brick in the quilt back? So, I've kind of finessed this to make it work, and I want to share with you how this all comes together. This probably sounds a little jumbled right now, but let me show you where we're going with it. You can see, though, how I'm piecing this. I have, sort of a straightish edge here. Some are long, some are short, and that's how I offset my blocks, my bricks as I go along. And they're not all exactly the same. If you were to put a yardstick or a ruler, not all of these would line up, which is absolutely fine. It's the idea of the illusion, so to speak, and it works out great. And then I'm just leaving this I'll trim that off at the end. I want to have one edge that's semi-straight that I can work from. I'll set my quilt up and I'll do my basting from here and go from the center out to this end and then to each side, and then I'll come down here and trim off, because this is at least 80 inches. And it's probably closer to 82 inches, and my quilt front actually is about 76. So it's 72 by 76. So I have more than enough in that direction there. But I really like how this is looking. This is a lot of fun. And what a great way to piece the back. You can use leftover border, and this would be great for fat quarters. Just cut some 18 to 20 inch strips from your fat quarters and, build a brick wall and you're good to go. This worked out well, leaving these pieces longer rather than cutting them to 12. Now there is a place, I thought there was a place that, right here, where I didn't have another piece of this, so I just added a different green. But that's okay. Some of these are long and have the same colors. Like I said, this is one where I, matched up something else. And it's a scrappy back. I love it. This is such fun to make, and it really is quite simple. So I'll get these end pieces on, and then I'm going to get this quilt basted, and we're going to start quilting. I'm so excited. I have an idea of how I'm going to quilt this, and I think you're really going to like it. It's a lot of fun. And here we are, all quilted, finished. I love it. It's beautiful. And with the last two videos, I did some examples of quilting diamonds. And I decided to do a whole quilt that way, which I've not done before. And I love how this turned out. And I just want to give you an idea of how this looks. I'll do a full shot at the end for you. And you can see the diagonal going this way and then this way. We've got our diamonds in the middle, and I think they're fabulous. Just show you real quick. And when you look up close, these red ones really stand out. You can see that diamond pattern. And whoops, got a little thread in there as well. And it looks wonderful. I love how perfect it looks, because I'll tell you, it's not perfect. There was some challenges in there keeping myself straight on the grid that I needed to follow in order to keep the pattern. But the pattern, fortunately, is very, very forgiving. So I definitely need to do a tutorial on the diamond quilting. Like I said, we did a couple previously here just recently, and it went well, and I wanted to do more with it, and I'm so happy I did this. Now, let me show you what the back looks like. And here's the back, and just look at how wonderful those diamonds are. They just make such a great interest in the back. With this being all straight rectangles, you need something to kind of liven it up. And I did these diamonds more for the back than the front. The front had enough going on that I could have quilted it with most anything. And the challenge for me, I thought, was going to be that I had to quilt everything in one direction and then turn around and do it in another. And I just thought that was going to be so much time. Well, the first round does take time. It probably took me, 4-ish hours, because it just takes that long at times. But just to do my every 2 inches to make sure I was on the right track to get the correct angles. But when I did the second half, oh my gosh, I just flew through because everything was all set up and ready to go. So while a large quilt may not be the best first option, doing some of the smaller pieces like we recently did would be wonderful. And they're a lot of fun. It gives you a little experience doing it, and then you can find out if it's something that you enjoy. But I do definitely love the look. So let me show you a little bit more. We'll just kind of look through. The bricks are fabulous. This works out really well. This would be a wonderful quilt top, not just a back. This is done with scraps, but if you decide to do it as a scrappy, oh my goodness, I got threads everywhere. do it as a scrappy front, that would be fantastic, but you could also do it with like ombre prints and, you know, alternate solids and prints. There's just a lot that you can do to make this really fun. And then we have the other end, and of course have to put a fun binding on there. And this is what I'm so excited about. I think that came out adorable. And these are just a fun way to finish off your quilt, especially for the holidays. If you're making a gift or for a celebration, anniversary, something like that. And I hope you'll think about making sure you've got labels on all your quilts. So there we are, and I will show you some final shots here in just a minute. I hope you enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun. These come out really sweet, and you can put your own message. Actually, you can just use the fabric itself without any templates and print your own words on it, or your own message, or, you know, whatever works for you. But I just thought, since we still had some of this fabric left over, it would be perfect to make some more little trees. And here's the final picture of the quilt top finished with the binding all around the edges. This is an on point, so we have the half blocks on the side, and it looks wonderful. I really love this quilt. And the green with the candy cane stripe, I think, gives it such a festive look with all those bright colors. It's wonderful. This is the finished quilt back, and I love all those prints and those colors. It makes such a fantastic quilt backing. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. And I've done a lot of pieced backs before, but never anything quite this inclusive of colors and such. It's mostly been larger blocks, but I really like this. And of course, the brick pattern is such an easy one to do, especially when you do these offset seams. My goodness, this just went together so quickly. I love how it turned out. And this little label on the back, how cute is that? And more of these Christmas trees. Oh my goodness, I have found more places to put Christmas trees this year. I hope you enjoyed this quilt and have some ideas about doing your own quilt backing, and remembering you've got to put labels on your quilts if you're making any gifts or giving quilted items as gifts. Make sure you include your name. People always appreciate that. It's been a pleasure having you following along and joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to being with you again soon. There's a lot more quilting we have to do.